Good morning. Thanks for joining us this Tuesday morning with Tuesdays with Kamira. Today I'm talking STEM with Stephanie Espy, owner of Math Espy. She's going to help us connect the STEM dots for our students. She's going to explain what that includes, how do we get our teens interested in STEM activities. If you're joining us live, you feel free to place questions or comments in the comment section, and I will put them on screen, and Stephanie will address them live so you can have a conversation with Stephanie. And if you're watching a recording, Stephanie will not be able to answer your questions, but you may be able to have a conversation with other people who are watching the recording. So feel free to dialogue with them. And also we'll post Stephanie's website and other information that comes up during the conversation in the comment section so that you can refer to that. Welcome, Stephanie. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
Okay, let's start with you defining STEM for us and explaining to us how you became a proponent of STEM education.
Yeah, so it's funny because STEM is a fairly new term. Back when I was in, middle school, high school, growing up, STEM wasn't a term that we used all the time like we use today. Of course, math and science were synonymous with STEM back in the 90s when I was a teen. And I've always been interested in math and science. And when you combine math and science together, that's really the genesis of STEM. So STEM is an acronym. It stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. My degrees are in chemical engineering. So I've combined science and math into chemical engineering, which engineering is a part of that STEM acronym. The other part of the acronym is technology, the T for technology, because of course, everything around us has to be created and invented by a STEM person. Yes. So though, you can go to college and you can major in, of course, a science area or a math area or engineering area, usually technology is looked at upon as a industry or field. You can use that in a technology industry or field. A lot of technologists have backgrounds in science and math and engineering. There's programs where you can have a management technology certificate. So there's technology certificates and different trainings where you can really become experienced in a technology industry. But technology is an extremely broad term. And I like to say a pair of scissors is technology, right? Because at some point they did not exist. Someone came up with the idea, they created them, and now they exist. So technology is not just computers. Okay. It is everything and expands from the early ages, of course. And every year, every day, there's something new being created that we can consider as technology. So technology is synonymous with innovation, creation, invention. That is what I consider to be technology. And so STEM in general is just the idea of researching, developing, creating, making the world a better place for everybody. I became a proponent of STEM and STEM education because of my background as an engineer, as a chemical engineer, having gone through undergraduate school at MIT and graduate school at University of California, Berkeley. I have experienced lots of challenges and lots of successes in the classroom and through work study programs and through research programs, and also, of course, in the real world. And it's very enlightening to pursue a career that when you actually enter that career, you're not represented enough on a day-to-day basis. And so I became a proponent of STEM and STEM education because I want to see more people who look like me enter into STEM careers. I wanted to see people that look like me decide to pursue careers in a lot of these areas that have traditionally and still remain male-dominated.
Now, I know, let's tell the people who are listening and watching us that you did something beyond being a proponent as far as explaining STEM and women in STEM, and you have a book about women in STEM. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, my book is called STEM Gems. This is a copy of the book.
Yeah.
STEM Gems is really about these 44 dynamic women that you see on the cover that I've had the opportunity to connect with and talk with to understand their journey to their respective STEM career. So when I set out to write this book, I wrote it with this idea that, again, women are underrepresented in so many different STEM careers. So many STEM careers are not in popular culture. They're not on television. They're not being talked about on a regular basis. You can go your entire life without ever having met or been introduced to some of these women or some of these fields and some people in these fields. So I wanted to shine the light. I wanted to highlight careers in STEM that are underrepresented by women. And I wanted to highlight women in those careers who are breaking barriers every day for women and also for people of color. So that is the genesis of the STEM Gems book. That was my initial ideas. How do I bring to the forefront careers in STEM, also women in these careers? So I just brainstormed a list of careers, careers that I knew about just from my background and through my education, as well as careers that I wish I had known about when I was in middle school and high school that I had no idea existed. So the list of careers came first, and then there was a lot of research to find a woman in that career. So just a lot of online research to see who's doing exceptional work in this area, and then reaching out to that woman and saying, hey, I would love to share your story. I would love to talk to you about why you chose this career, how you make a difference in the world through your career, how you help people, because those two things, making a difference and helping people, those are the top two reasons that girls choose a career, their respective career. So let's connect the dots. How do you help people so we can understand how your career actually helps people? How do you change the world? What is your contribution to the world? Let's understand that. Let's make that very, very clear for the reader. And also, what inspired you to this career that is, again, extremely male-dominated, and a career where your mother, your father, your family members, you had no one in your family that could lead you down that path. So how did you end up down this path without, what was that factor that led you to decide this was the career you want to pursue? With all the options in the world, why this career? And let's help other people understand why this career is for them as well, or could be for them as well. So that is what the interviews were all about. And after interviewing all these different women, 44 of them, I was, again, you're blown away by just the powerful stories and the things that these women have accomplished. That, again, if you don't know them, if it's not in mainstream media, you don't even know. It's like under the radar, but their impact is very large and very broad. So I wanted to pull that out and want to share that with mainstream every day, whether you're in STEM or not. That's who I want to share it with. And they also talked about a lot of the factors for success, like how they were able to overcome challenges, how they were able to persist through some hard times, how they were able to really recognize their voice and use their voice to affect change. So there were a lot of commonalities between the 44 women that I spoke with, and commonalities between them and myself, as well as between each other. And so I wanted to pull those commonalities out. So the latter part of the book is 8 chapters that really are action forward, very tangible, to-do list types of things where you can take that part and you can apply it to your own life, and you can start heeding the advice of these 44 amazing, inspiring women, and set out and create your own unique path, your own unique journey in a STEM career. So that's the latter part. So I think it's important to read through their stories and understand their careers and their inspiration, but also flip to the last 8 chapters and make sure that you're writing those things down, journaling, taking heed of all the advice, and creating your own unique path towards a STEM career.
That's a great place for us to pick up, because you mentioned that, connecting the dots between wanting to help people and the careers that led to that. And your book, the last 8 chapters, has action items for people who are interested, specifically young women in this case, but it can be any teen who's interested in a STEM career or even just a hobby or an interest. So how can parents expose older students to STEM? Since we're speaking specifically with parents of teens, maybe your teen has shown an interest and you want to help them take it further, or maybe they haven't and you realize I should expose them to this before they leave the house. Where should we begin?
So excellent question. And I think the one word I would say, if I had to just sum up in one word, I would say be intentional or intentional. That's my one word, intentional. And I think as a parent, I have a daughter. She's only 7 or 8, just turned 8, but she's not a teen. But still, in her, as a parent, I am extremely intentional about the things that she does, about the experiences that she has, about the summer, the way she spends her summer, the way she spends her weekends. Very intentional about what I put in front of her. And I think as parents of teens, teens, of course, have their own minds. They want to do this. They think they know what's best for them, even though, of course, we as parents know what's best for them. They have their own unique personalities. They feel like they just want to do what they want to do. So it's very tough raising a teen. But I feel as parents, it's still our job to be very intentional with our teens and put in front of them opportunities that they may not necessarily want to do. They may not ask to do it, but once they are in it, they will realize the benefit of being in it. They will learn so much from being in it. They will be surrounded by other people that are interested in it. And from that, they will develop an interest themselves. That's definitely a possibility. So they go from, I don't want to do it. Why do I have to do this? I don't really care about this. I just want to hang out with my friends, to thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. That was actually really fun. I actually learned a lot. I, didn't think I was going to get that much out of it. So I think we still have to encourage and lead our teens, even in things that they may not necessarily want to be a part of initially, or ask to be a part of, or show that much interest in. If you've never seen it, you'll never be it. You can't be what you can't see, period. So if they have never experienced what it's like to be a scientist, or what it's like to be an engineer, then it will never be an option for them. So as parents, what we can do is be intentional and create opportunities for them to have the experience, so that they can at least say, I tried it and it's not for me. But you'll be surprised if they say, I tried it and I actually love it. Or, wow, I never thought it would be so cool. Or I never thought you could do this, this, and this with a STEM, with STEM. It's cool they do X, but you give them a different experience and do Y, and all of a sudden they have interest in Y, but not in X. They're using variables here, but you get the ideas that just because they didn't like one experience doesn't mean they won't like the next experience. Because, these fields are there's a wide range of options. So, for example, I'm a chemical engineer. I am not a fan of electrical engineering. That's my dad. That's my sister. That was not me. I'm not a person that was gravitating towards anything to do with physics. I love chemistry and math. I stayed away from physics as much as I possibly could, and I wanted all the chemistry you could give me. So just because I didn't gravitate towards electrical engineering doesn't mean I can't be an engineer. Doesn't mean, engineering is not for me. It just means that type of engineering wasn't for me. So again, don't assume one experience means that it's not, that whole category is not for you. You may just not have an affinity towards physics, but you may love chemistry, or you may not like chemistry, but you may love the biological sciences or forensic sciences, or what have you. So that's kind of my advice, is create opportunities. There's so many things out there to get your teens involved in. And I think one great first place to start, or two places to start. One is, of course, your local school, your middle school, your high school. There's a ton of opportunities right there in the building, through after school activities, through clubs, through different teams your school may have that you could join and be a part of. And then there's lots of things that say the second place to go is your local colleges. Because here in Atlanta, we have so many different colleges: Emory University, Morehouse, Spelman, Georgia State, Georgia Tech, Agnes Scott, etc. And these colleges have programs on campus for teens, for high school, middle school teens. Take advantage of these programs. Many of them are free programs. So take advantage of these programs on local college campuses that are designed to inspire teens and get teens interested in STEM. So just sign up for STEM and just see what happens, and see how much your teen goes from, oh, why do I have to do this, to, wow, I actually enjoyed that experience.
Let's connect the dots with a teen's current interest to STEM and how we can get them there. But before we do that, I want to remind people that please place your questions or comments in the comments section, and we'll address them live on air. So you mentioned forensics, and sometimes teens are having a good time watching these shows. There are a lot of TV shows and movies based on forensics. And if you see that, maybe you can lead your teen to an activity club. It can be a one-day thing, or it can be an overextended period of time. That is unusual suspect. Another one is gaming. A lot of them really like to game. Maybe you can guide them towards learning how to create games and stuff. Can you give us some other ideas of an interest a young person may have that is rooted in STEM, and how we can make the connection for them and then create further exposure?
Well, I think it's important to recognize that STEM is all around us. Everything from the chair that I'm sitting on right now, to the table, to the computer, to this cup of coffee I have next to me. So there's a way to connect everything you do to something that's STEM. Even cooking, shopping, everything we do involves some sort of STEM skill. Yeah. And I think, again, going back to my word intentional, it's important as parents that we're intentional about helping to make those connections. For example, the chair I'm sitting on right now is designed by somebody, right? And it's made of a certain type of material. So materials engineering is a whole category of engineering where you focus on what's the best type of material to use to make different products, so that you are able to have a safe product that doesn't fall apart the minute you use, or doesn't catch on fire, or doesn't, that does the job, whatever it's designed to do. So there's a lot of different factors that go into play when you're creating anything and everything that we use on a daily basis. So I think that, and the one thing that my parents did growing up for me and for my siblings was to help us make those connections. And it wasn't like, it was through everyday conversation. They weren't forcing this down our throat in a way that was like, come on, mom, come on, dad, leave me alone. It was just normal everyday conversation. So my mom, as she was cooking and as we were helping her to cook, was introducing ratios to us, right? So how much water do we need to add to this? How much salt do we need? Measure this, measure that. If we want to double the recipe, what do we need to do differently? If you want to half the recipe, what do we need to do differently? Temperature, we want to bake something faster or slower, or this consistency or that consistency, how does the temperature affect these different things? So just, lots of different everyday conversations that we would have that were not, again, forced down our throat per se, but it was just like, let's talk about the art of cooking, the science of cooking. And my dad was one that was always fixing things around the house. Whenever something wasn't working properly, he may not have known how to do it, but he was going to figure it out. He was going to take it apart, try to figure it out, try to put it back together, try to fix it. And that includes, the car. So whenever something was wrong with the car, he's like, come on, Stephanie, come on outside with me. Let's get under this hood. Let's get under the car, see what's going on. See if we can figure out what's going on. Let's pass me the hammer, help me do this. Pass me the screwdriver, help me screw this. Just little things that I would help him to do that were teaching me things that, again, STEM.
Yep.
At the time, I didn't know what it was, but it went from being, why do I have to help you? You know, why can't Jennifer help you, my sister? You know, why do I have to do it? I'm busy. I have things to do, to like, okay, fine, you know, and then helping him and actually becoming, you know, interested in how do we fix this problem.
That's a good lead in to a question we have from Diane. Diane asks, what do you suggest for teens who are stuck in a very rural community that don't have STEM activities? So what you were discussing about what your parents did, and then taking the next step and leading that to explaining how those activities lead to careers. What other ideas do you have for Diane?
Well, if you're in a rural area and you don't have access to, you know, local businesses, or here in Atlanta, you know, we have all sorts of manufacturing facilities where you can, you know, go on a tour and see what the design process looks like, or, you know, tour the Clorox plant and see how they create, you know, large scale production of something. So in a major city like Atlanta, there's all sorts of things, festivals, science festivals, different things you can do. If you're in a rural area, then of course the internet is going to be your best friend, because a lot of exposure to STEM is going to be through, you know, through YouTube, through social media, through, you know, the Fernbeck Science Center here in Atlanta has lots of options online. So it's not, you don't have to physically be at Fernbeck Science Center to gain some of the experiences. You can also do a virtual experience, especially with, you know, in this current age we're living in with COVID, a lot of things are moving more virtual than in person anyway. So a lot of opportunities that were once in person are now being moved to the virtual space. So that makes it even more of an even playing field, so to speak, when you know, it doesn't matter so much where you live, you still have access to, if you have access to the internet and you have, you know, a laptop or desktop or some sort of device, you can still connect with what Fernbeck is doing, or what Georgia Tech is doing, or what, you know, XYZ college or learning center is doing, and be connected in that way. So again, it's about being intentional, because a Google search will bring you so many different options. And I would just say, you know, start with that. I also, of course, recommend that this be a good starting place for you, right? The STEM Gems book, the STEM Gems website. You go on the website and just click on some of the different careers, and then let that be your inspiration to learning more about that career. So then a Google search about, say, molecular biology, for example, can pull up different programs. Molecular biology for teens, for example, can pull up, or K through 12 molecular biology or whatever, can pull up different programs or opportunities or websites that you didn't even know existed that are there to provide STEM education for teens.
We have another question, but I wanted to emphasize something that you said for the rural areas. In a lot of rural areas, there are plants and occupations that in your area that are STEM. You just have to make the connection and then see if they'll offer a tour. I had never thought about that, but plants in such places will offer tours. So that's a really great idea. We have another question. This one is from Dana. Thank you, Dana. And it says, how do you look for STEM professionals high school students can shadow? My daughter is interested in shadowing engineers in medical technology, medicine, and aerospace medical engineering.
That's an excellent question, Dana. So I'm going to recommend a couple different things. So the first thing I recommend is LinkedIn. And I don't know about you all, but LinkedIn is the go-to social media to meet STEM professionals. And whenever I get a message from a teenager on LinkedIn, I am uber impressed that there's a teenager on LinkedIn who is wanting to talk to me about my work. So how can you say no to that, right? If you get a message from a teenager, a high school student, middle school student who's like, I'm interested in aeronautical engineering, can we connect? Can we talk for a few minutes? What adult is going to turn that opportunity down to inspire the next generation? So if there's a teen on LinkedIn, again, I'm just impressed that they're on LinkedIn, because usually LinkedIn is for professionals, but it's also for teens who are wanting to be a professional one day. So that's a great place to start, Dana, is with LinkedIn. Another place that you can go if you have a female teen is Society of Women Engineers, SWE, SWE, Society of Women Engineers, or WIT, WIT, Women in Technology, WIT. Those are professional organizations that also have programming for teens, because every professional organization is wanting to impact the next generation. So though most of the work is supporting the women in these careers and networking opportunities and job exposure, recruiting, et cetera, there's always a component that's like, how do we inspire the next generation? So WIT, for example, has WIT Girls, so a program devoted to girls to help them become interested in technology. And then SWE also has programming for girls as well. They have a whole engineering series of programming to introduce girls to engineering, and of course to professionals in these areas as well. And that's just two examples. There's also NSBE, the National Society of Black Engineers. There's ACES, there's SHIP, there's a plethora of professional organizations for STEM professionals that have components dedicated to the next generation. Also companies. So if you have a child interested in Microsoft or Apple or whatever, a lot of companies have people dedicated to connecting with teens as well. I have personally been on numerous panels for numerous companies in front of teenagers, both virtually and in person. So if you connect with a local company or connect with maybe a dream company that your child has identified as like, interesting to them. And then again, LinkedIn is a great place to start to find out if there's any sort of programming that company has to offer. Or if you have a personal contact, or just looking on that company website and look for, programs for K through 12 or high school age students or whatever it may be. But yes, there are many, many, many STEM professionals who would love the opportunity to allow a teen to shadow or just to have a conversation with. So it's just a matter of, again, being intentional about finding those opportunities and reaching out to professionals and reaching out to professional organizations and reaching out to social media is a great connector for so many, of course it has its negative attributes that we want to stay away from, but there's also a lot of positive to social media in terms of connecting and networking.
Okay, so what I just learned is that you can tour plants, that teens need a LinkedIn account because that way they can connect with professionals in the area of interest, and that they can also use that or just the internet period to research and access professional organizations in their area of interest. We are running out of time, but I wanted to give my 2 tips. Then I wanted to ask you a question and for you to give your 2 tips, and then we'll wrap it up from there. One of my tips is that just whatever your teen doesn't have to be interested in mechanics and computers. If you have a teen who's really interested in perfume, that is a STEM career, creating perfumes. That is chemistry. That is also agriculture. Agriculture is STEM. Let's not forget that. So really kind of stretch your mind a little so that you can take them and connect the dots. Do you like perfume? You seem to want to mix I see you mixing these different oils together. Did you know you can take it even further? And then my other tip is, while you're doing that, make sure that you encourage them to maintain their rigorous academic, and whatever rigorous is as defined for them, academic portfolio, so they keep taking the sciences and maths as long as they can, as far as they can, as much as their brain is willing. That way, if they ever decide to shift and to go deeper into STEM, they have the fundamentals, and it will never hurt having the fundamentals that way. Now for Stephanie, I'm going to ask you for your tips, but I also want you to give us an idea of some of the STEM careers that our students may be interested in, some of the usual ones, but also the unusual ones that we don't think about that much. And then what are your key tips for adults who are raising teens and really want to connect the dots with them when it comes to STEM and raise their interest and exposure?
Now, how many do you want me to give you? Because I can go ahead and read off. You know?
Okay, so give us three. Okay, give us three that are unusual, but that may appeal to teens because it's connected to a teen interest of some sort. I mentioned the perfume only because that's what came to mind for me.
Mm-hmm. Actuary. I'm going to mention that one because that's one that so many people have never ever heard of. So if you've never heard of actuary, I highly suggest that you look it up. And if you have, but you feel like your child may haven't, may not have heard of it, then I like that one because it's one of those. It's like, what is that? I think another one that I will mention is data science. Now you may know what that is just from the name, data science. But every industry needs a data scientist. Every industry. So even if you love to shop, like you love clothes, you love to look good. Every fashion house needs a data scientist. So you could be a data scientist in the fashion industry.
Okay.
So that's one, again, that applies so many different things. And then I'll just mention solar energy technologists, because solar energy is one of those areas that it may not be mainstream today, but it will be. It will be. And I love careers that, back when I was a teen, these did not exist. This does not exist. Guess what? Today, everybody has one. So solar energy is a technology that is not mainstream today, but in the future, it will be. So I love working on technologies that are today sort of like, no, there's not a huge presence, so to speak, but slowly it's going, just like self-driving cars, driverless cars. Sounds kind of weird. What do you mean? But in the future, it will be very commonplace to see a self-driving car. So those are the three that I'll mention. And of course, you got to read the book for the rest of them.
I love the car one, just car design and stuff. That's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the second part was, what was the last part of the question?
Tips just to help parents when they're trying to encourage and expose their teen. If they can only remember one thing from this half hour, what's the one thing that you would encourage them to do?
Be intentional and try something new. Okay. Try something new. I always say, do something every day that scares you. And that's for the parent and for the child. So if your parenting is like, oh my God, but I don't like math and I've never been good at math, do something that scares you as a parent for your child. And that will allow you to open a door for them that you may not be as comfortable opening because that's not your field, that's not your industry, that's not your expertise. But it could be something your child could be interested in. Just because it's not for you doesn't mean it's not for them. If you are in the Atlanta area, even if you're not, Emory Math Circle, or Math Circle in general, check it out. Math may not be for you. Don't ever tell your child that, if that's the case. You don't want to project that insecurity onto them. But the Emory Math Circle, they have transitioned to online programming, but that is a organization that I've had some interaction with, and I cannot wait to get my daughter involved.
The math circles are national. Math
circles are national, exactly.
Yeah, they're national. So look them up online.
Math circles are also national. So look up Math Circle, look up Math Counts, get your kids engaged in some really fun problem-solving activities that will help them connect math to the real world.
Yeah. We have a couple of comments. Laura says her high school daughter just hosted a week-long free engineering camp for young girls. Good for her, Laura. That's wonderful. You must be so proud.
I'm so proud of your daughter, Laura. That's awesome.
And we have, let's see, Christina says, thank you, Stephanie. You're amazing. I agree, Christina. And great subject matter. Well, thank you. Thank you for watching us.
Thank you, Christina.
And we have another Shitao, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. And she says there are tons of virtual shadowing on Instagram. Oh, that's a very good advice that she's given to Dana. See, look at our community helping one another. That's
say one thing. If you are on Instagram and you follow my hashtag at @STEMGemsBook, @STEMGemsBook, first follow me and then follow who I follow, because I follow a ton of STEM professionals in a wide range of STEM areas. So if you just follow me and then look at what I'm sharing, what I'm posting, and then look at who I'm following, that right there will be a great place to start if you want to meet some STEM professionals and follow their journeys, because they're always posting about their own personal journey, their journey through their undergraduate degree, through their PhD, through their professional career. A lot of inspiration on Instagram for sure.
That's a great tip. Did you guys hear that tip? Follow Stephanie at she's at STEM Gems Book, STEM Gems Book, and then follow who she follows. That's a great tip. And her Instagram is in the comment section. Stephanie, I want to thank you so much for spending this time with us.
You're welcome. One more. I have another Instagram. It's @MathSP Coaching, because if you're interested in math, or if your child is interested in math, or you're interested in getting your child help, because I help teens with math and science, then if you follow @MathSP Coaching, and again, follow who I follow through that, that's a whole nother set of inspiration from that's just more focused on math and learning math, versus like people is more about learning math at the MathSP Coaching page. So those are two different pages to follow.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. We are at the end of our time. There's more to come, though. Tomorrow, you can join us at 10:30, and you can join at 10:30 tomorrow is Jen and Sharon, Coffee with Jen and Sharon. They always have wonderful subjects. They're always talking. Bring your coffee, relax. You may be in your fuzzy slippers if you're at home. I don't know, but you're going to have coffee with Jen and Sharon tomorrow, Wednesday, 10:30 a.m. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me. I loved it.
You're welcome.